Good morning, everyone. Afternoon for some. This is Scott Eller. We're going to be going over intelligent redaction. If you could just bear with us about 30 seconds to a minute, we'll wait for any other attendees to join us here. And again, thank you for joining. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off today. So again, thank you for joining us today. We're going to be going through intelligent redaction. So real quick, I'll take you through what we're going to go through today. I will briefly take you through introductions to myself and then also the other very talented speakers that we have on the call today. Then we'll take you through exactly what we're going to cover. We'll talk a little bit about redaction and what lack of redaction, the types of issues that can come up from that. And then we'll take you through some of the current redaction capabilities. So there are some solutions out there. We'll discuss those, and then we'll discuss going above and beyond those for the future. We'll then go through some different business requirements. I think that actually some of those will resonate with some of the other people on the phone today. And then we'll take you through just a brief demo of the intelligent redaction and some of those capabilities. Finally, we'll go through some different use cases, the impact of those, and then we'll answer any questions that may come up throughout the call. So you may notice everyone's muted right now, but you do have the ability to type in your questions, and our admin will be able to read those questions at the end, and I'll get those answered for you. Real quick, my name is Scott Eller. I am the Chief Relationship Officer at Neuraswitch. I've been with Neuraswitch the last 4 years and focused on the contact center space. Prior to that, I've been in technology since 2005, focusing on CRM, CPQ solutions, but again, really CRM telephony the last 4 years. I'm also going to be introducing Wayne Rapashad. Wayne is the Chief Product Officer at Voci Tech. He has over 30 years of experience in the call center space, and if Wayne doesn't know the answer, I don't know who does, but on a daily basis, I always get asked for experts in the field, and if I'm going to recommend anyone, it's always Wayne. So we're very lucky to have him on today's call. Also have Patrick Gannon. Patrick Gannon is the Senior Account Executive over at Voci Tech. He's been with them about 3 years, and he's going to be sharing with us a lot of what he hears on a day-in, day-out basis from his customers on exactly what their challenges are, what their requirements are around redaction capabilities. So with that said, I'm going to hand things over to Wayne real quick, and he's going to take us through what we're going to learn today.
Thank you for the great introduction there, Scott. Yeah, so what we're going to learn today really is the importance of both redacting your audio and your transcripts, and some of the impacts behind it when you don't or you're exposed, and some of the definitions around it. So, for example, pinpoint accuracy. So the ability to redact numbers and words. In the past, it's been PCI based, so being able to redact numbers. But if you redact, the credit card number, you don't want to redact the telephone number or dates and times with the amounts. So choosing what you redact is also important, and also letting data through that shouldn't be let through. For example, the CVV, which should not be stored after a transaction is complete, is really important. But if you over redact, then you get the really bullet point number 2, which is analytics. So today it's all about speech analytics, and if you over redact the document, you can't make any sense of it. So you don't want to lose the fidelity to some degree, and Neuraswitch has found some abilities to make it so that you can still provide data analysis even though the file has been redacted itself. And also different ways to do redaction. So batch is what most people think about. And that's your historical archives, your daily dumps at the end of the day and things like that. But the world is moving towards real time and artificial intelligence and voice assisted agents. So that's live calls, redacting on the fly while you're speaking so that you can store it to logs for compliance and notes, but also still have the data potentially to enter into the secure system. And that's what you will learn by the end of today. Back to you, Scott.
Perfect. Thank you, Wayne. Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up real time too. I mean, in previous years, we've been hearing primarily that everything's batch, all we need is batch, but with the pandemic and everything coming across, real time is just becoming that much more needed with agents just at home and everything. So, so real quick, we talk a lot about redaction. So what is redaction? So redaction defined is the editing of text as to hide or remove confidential or sensitive information. So we're redacting all sorts of different information to keep all of our customers sensitive. It's a duty as a company that has customers. You need to protect them. So some of the things that we're protecting, these are actually federal court examples. So all these regulations may not have made it across to the telephony call center space yet, but I promise you they're coming. So some of these, I mean, obviously social security number, we have to redact today, tax ID. If someone gets a hold of our social security number, it takes a long time to fix. Fixing a stolen identity is not something easy to do. Date of birth. So if you look at the actual specifics around a federal court, you can only have the month and the year. You can't have the specific date and all of that information there. With minor children, again, in the court system, you can only have first initial, last initial. You can't have the first name, last name. Credit card number, a lot of people are probably familiar with this. If you call in, you ask your credit card company about something, they're going to ask you for your last 4 digits. So again, a lot of companies are redacting all the numbers up until the last 4. But what's happening is what's outside of this. So a lot of threats are coming from PII data that's out of numeric. So if we look at data breach fines, here's just a quick example from 2020, but the average fine was between $100,000 and $50,000 per record. So that means if we're a hospital and we have 1 million different records, we could be charged $100 per that record. That gets very expensive very quickly. Now, there are a lot of different variables that make up what exactly that fine is. If I'm a organization and I'm aware that people can access my customer sensitive data, then the fine is going to be a lot more expensive than if it's just I had no idea and we were actually putting certain protocols in place. So after we've defined redaction, there are current market redaction capabilities out there. So when we look at a lot of the solutions out there, Voci actually has one of them. So they can currently redact numbers, anything that's in numeric. So if you look at credit cards, social security, birth dates, account numbers, anything listed here, it's easy for solutions today to be able to redact that. The issue with that is the world is morphing. The business place, the marketplace is changing to where hackers that are looking for data are using data outside of just numbers for threats. So they're actually pulling in different PII information. So that could be things like email address. It could be, addresses. It could be mother's maiden name, things that they're not numeric. So in order to protect our customers' data, we have to be able to start to be able to more advancedly redact information. So with that said, I'm going to hand things over to Pat, and he's going to take us through kind of what he hears on a daily basis.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So every day I'm taking discovery calls. We're talking to our current and potentially new partners, hearing their use cases and some of their issues. Some of those might be data is getting held for ransom. They got hacked and they're getting held for ransom. PCI regulations, GDPR. We recently got fined and we're looking to prevent this from happening again. Some of the redactions that we're currently doing, we're missing some of the information. Therefore, we're not compliant when we thought we were compliant. These are really common things that we're running into. Obviously, we have this ability right now with Voci to do the numeric redaction. Just recently, we had a big financial institution come to us requesting that we do 15 million hours of legacy audio. Voci was able to leverage our speeds and scaling to complete this task in 6 days. And one of those days, we did over 3 million hours in one 24-hour period of redaction. This is great for the numeric use case and making sure that we're compliant with this. What this really leaves is the question of how do I redact the PII information, and how do I still leverage the data that we're getting from our customers to make sure that we're providing them with the best journey while also keeping their information and keeping their trust in us as we're taking in their data. So I'm going to pass you back over to Scott, where he can go into more of how we can improve this customer's journey as well as being compliant with some of these new features that we're rolling out.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. And you brought up a great point there. So you brought up a point that companies are redacting too much. So then they have no ability to provide analytics off of it. So it's becoming to be a big problem. But the other day I was reading an article, I think it was in the New York Times, and it had, at the top, it had the title of the article, and then it had redacted copy. And it was a complete solid box that had no words, nothing, absolutely everything was redacted. So that's a great example of what companies are finding. They can't redact everything. They have no ability to report off of it. So with that said, I'm going to show you just a quick example of intelligent redaction and some of the examples that we can redact. If you think back to the example that I just mentioned, it had everything grayed out. So here's an example. We're asking for an address. We're able to redact the entire address and mask it with something that's useful. Again, the PIN, we have the ability to do asterisks. We can mask with address, email address, any sort of masking ID that is going to be helpful. So if you look at all these different examples that we just went through, so we're able to do address, we're able to do different PINs. So again, we're leveraging Voci for the numeric part, but we can do that as well. And then we're doing address, email address, and then symptom. So this is, it's a minor child here. So my daughter's experienced symptom. But what that's doing is it's still allowing anyone that's doing analytics to get the valuable information that they need. They need to understand how many times was address mentioned, how many times was PIN mentioned, how many times was email address. So we're able to still redact and make sure that we're protecting our customers' data, but at the same time, we're providing enough information to where that customer can report off. So that's just one quick example. There's lots more that we can take you through at a later time again. So real quick, we hear this every day. So we're talking about intelligent redaction. We hear this often. Hey, intelligent redaction already exists. And while redaction exists, and there are custom ways to redact things, it's not an easy process. So anyone that offers custom redaction, it's going to be extremely time consuming. It is going to be focused primarily on different numbers, just numerics. There's going to be opportunity for leakage. And then training data. So when you're looking at a lot of the solutions that are in the marketplace, if you're looking to redact outside of numerics, you're going to have to spend an absorbent amount of time training the system for what models you're actually trying to achieve. Again, and what does that do from a human resources standpoint? You're likely going to have dedicated resources and things of that nature, making it a much more costly solution to put in place. A big piece to hit on is also the pause and resume. So a lot of organizations are out there leveraging pause and resume today, thinking that they're compliant. And in reality, you're not. So when you're pausing, that's giving the agent the ability to really go off and do whatever they're doing. They could be writing down the account number. They could be copying, pasting to another monitor. So really that pausing is allowing that human to intervene and provide deliberate abuse, insider fraud. And at the end of the day, that is not a PCI or DSS compliant solution. So again, if we get into a study, another study in 2020, it found that customer data was by far the most commonly comprised type of data, but 80% of organizations are now saying that PII data is being compromised. That is why something like intelligent redaction is required or needed more so going forward in the future. So again, another stat here. On average, this study found that instead of $100 on average, this was $150 per average, and then $8.64 million per incident. So by scrubbing your data, by doing redaction, maybe putting intelligent redaction on top of that, you're eliminating the risk of having a $8.64 million incident. And actually, there's all of this is public information out there, but I just randomly looked up the local hospitals around my area the other day, and I found that my local hospital has had two $75,000 fines for data breaches in the last 2 years. So definitely something that we want to be cautious of and something that we need to look out for. I got through that a little bit quicker than I wanted, but I did want to leave plenty of time for questions to see what questions were raised out of this presentation. So that said, Nathan, do you were any questions, did they come across while we were going through everything?
One came through. Does this only work in English?
No, it does not. So we actually work with multiple languages, and that is actually going to be ASR specific. So working with Voci, Wayne or Pat, what are the best languages to work with within your solution?
So we currently support the major English languages: U.S. English, Australian English, UK English, Euro English, North American Spanish, Spain Spanish. We're coming out with most Latin America Spanish speaking, Italian, and German is where we are, and French, Parisian French and Canadian French. So most of the major languages are currently supported right now.
Perfect. Yeah, and I know that's always a running list that they're constantly coming out with additional ones too. But hopefully it answers your question. If I can clarify in any way, just please type in again.
Yeah. There's another question just came in. Can you talk about accuracy? So this is one of the reasons why we're working together with Neuraswitch, because what's actually happening under the covers and the reason why Neuraswitch can do what they do is because of the accuracy of the transcript. So we are transcribing the call in either real time or post call, depending on the implementation, and giving a very accurate transcript back to Neuraswitch so that they can then decide what can be redacted. And because they have the whole conversation, they can use context. So there's two levels of accuracy here, right? One is the accuracy of what's spoken versus what was transcribed. And the next one is what is the accuracy of the dialogue. And what we couldn't show you in this short demo is that very often when somebody says, what's your credit card number? It's 4 or 5 what we call speaker turns. So I'll go 4147, and they go, and then I go 4010, and they go, is that 4010? So Neuraswitch has the ability to follow the building up of the credit card number and then blank all those things out along the way, so that when I finally go, and I currently live at 121 North Street, that isn't redacted because it knows the credit card was completed and 121 North Street is an address, and in this particular case, it's allowed to go through.
Yeah, Wayne, that's a great point. And yeah, the solution is intelligent enough to actually listen before and after too. So if the agent actually asks something that the customer answered already previously, we can redact that as well.
There's another question from Brett, Scott, really for you here. Does this only work for voice, or can it also do text? I think the question is, could we feed a text file into Neuraswitch, and could it be redacted as well?
We can do that as well. It's not we are omni-channel, yes. So that is a capability, but primarily voice. But again, we have that use case too.
And we just have another question. How does this work with legacy data?
Legacy data, it works very well. So Pat actually, Pat, you just kind of went through that. You guys just sold a very large deal. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so it was a large deal that was a financial institution, like I was talking about, that was 15 million hours that they were looking to get redacted. Obviously, you have a lot of data that's getting transferred back and forth, but we were able to meet that deadline just due to our ability to scale and our speeds to kind of meet these timelines, because this is a sensitive project. This is something that's time sensitive, and companies are looking to get it done quickly. That legacy data is really, it's not an issue on our end. It's how fast we can get the data, we can transcribe it.
Yeah, I think is that a lot of companies, and I've worked for a couple of them, have had to store audio data for 3, 5, or 7 years. And in the past, just having it encrypted on an offline storage somewhere was sufficient. If you read the new rules, encrypted audio is not sufficient, right? So what is happening to a lot of companies is they're going, geez, we have 7 years worth of audio. We do need to keep it on file in case we have to, protect ourselves in a legal situation. But on the other hand, we can't afford to have this data lost. So that's where, pulling that offline storage online, transcribing it and putting it right back where you got it from is absolutely things that we can do together with Neuraswitch today. And our system is extremely flexible in terms of how it can scale. So the amount of audio that you have really isn't a question at that point in time. It's just, how fast do you want it to get it done? And if you have a recorder or you have offline storage and it was over the phone, chances are we can support that format. We support over 350 different codecs today. So there's a very good chance that your audio could be redacted for you.
Yeah, and Wayne, you hit on a great point. When I worked for Salesforce, I was a financial services account executive, and for them, their conversations need to be stored for 7 years. So if you think about the chief compliance officer, that keeps them up at night. They're sitting there, they're thinking about all that data. And until we actually started building this solution, I didn't even really understand the impact of it. But think about all the times you're on the phone with someone and they're asking your mother's maiden name, your pet's favorite, your favorite pet. All of that data is keys to unlock all of your sensitive information. So when you're thinking about I'm sure that in your heads right now, it's like, where are all my financial accounts right now? Every time you've called into them in the last 7 years, that audio and text is likely stored. So
yeah, if you've heard that message, your call will be recorded. It's also being archived.
It's recording. Yeah.
And when you think about what's on that recording, right? They ask you questions to get into your account. Mother's maiden name, first place of high school, and what's your favorite teacher? All that information, if you were to get out into the bad hands, that can be used to steal your identity. So it's pretty important to keep that redacted. And this is what this is. Kind of leads to a question I can put in here. What if we have data that is specific to us? I think this is kind of covering your different models and the tunability of it.
Yeah, so there's so we do have pre-built models, and that's what allows us to get to market so quickly. So if you signed up for RedaXion, we have certain healthcare, certain HIPAA, PII models that are actually built out. But we do recognize that there's going to be certain, let's say a customer has a certain set of data that every other organization out there is probably like, that's not sensitive, but it is to yours. We do have the ability to define that and actually redact that information too. So it does take a little, we may not have a specific model built for it to deploy immediately, but we can build a one-off custom model for you as well.
I'll ask the question, only that I don't see it actually asked, is typically how much effort or how long would it take to tune it to a specific customer?
I would say on average, you could do it within a week or two. Okay. That's just kind of it really depends on the requirements. Obviously there's variables that go into, if it's something super simple and you know exactly what that language looks like, we could program it in within a couple hours into the console. We have a console that you control all of this from. We could spend probably 5 hours demonstrating just that. But that's, if interested, that's something that we can highlight on a one-off call later on.
Next question I see is, how big of a deal is compliance?
How big of a fine do you want to pay? I mean, you can see there are certain limitations on it, but I mean, if you're not being compliant, it's, as more and more regulations come, your fines are just going to continue. So again, you saw how crazy some of those fines can be. They can go all the way up to $8.64 million. But this actually, you know what? I think I didn't put this in the slide, but this actually may be relevant. There's one at the end here. So this is just a couple of examples here in 2021. So it's already exceeded the total number of events in 2020 by 17%. So these breaches are not going away. So if you're not protecting your customers' data, then a fine is coming at some point in time. And I hope it's a lesser amount than more. But if you just look at the these are trending results here, and they're going to continue to trend up as you look at people just trying to get into other people's data. So it's an ongoing issue that will only get bigger.
It seems like that third bullet there just has to do with, human error, right?
Yep.
Having this data redacted reduces the amount of human error that can take place.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't even touch on that, but yeah, if you have humans in there, errors are going to happen. I'm prone to issues. I probably made about 10 different slip-ups in this presentation, but that's us as humans. So why not put something in there that's automated and gives you that sense of comfort knowing that you're protecting your customers' data. Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions in the queue.
Okay, I'm going to
If
go
any
ahead
other questions, Scott,
I'm going to populate my contact information again. So if there are any questions, if there's any additional information that we can provide, feel free to reach out to me. Again, Scott Eller, I'm happy to help. You can reach me on my cell or email as well. And if there's no other questions, then we'll give you 4 minutes back in your day, and really appreciate your time, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.